All right, everyone, it's time to return to an issue that I talked about, well, almost a decade ago. I was talking about it as early as Sargon of Akkad, I think 8 or 9 years ago, actually, something around there, when he was kicked off PayPal and also kicked out of his bank. Link in the description, archived, of course. We do have a crisis in this country of debanking, and it's come roaring back to life, unfortunately. Banks get pressured by, craptivists to ban somebody from doing business with them because they have the wrong ideology. And the left really spearheaded this, although I have noticed there has been a counter surge by people on the right at times. They're just less effective at it. The right wing is better at making like one-off memes that become viral, whereas the left is better at going at structured things like banks, corporations, things like that. And there's a reason for that. The left is more inclined towards hyper-organization, a hierarchical system, things like that. The right wing is more inclined towards individual effort, so memetics and things of that nature. So you also get a juxtaposition with propaganda. On the right, you get Pepe, which is hysterical. On the left, you get an attempt to astroturf memes that almost never works, actually. So there's a little bit of a differentiation there as well. With regards to banking, though, it is important to be able to have a bank account. Therefore, you can pay your bills, you can get loans, and all of these other financial things that sometimes you need to do. If you therefore are debanked, the hope is that you effectively are living under a bridge because you can't access any of your money. And going through the process, by the way, of actually switching banks or getting yourself undeleted from the bank requires what? Devices that require money from the bank in order to continue operating. This is the whole point behind the left's spearheaded approach with regards to debanking. And let it be known, they are the ones 90% of the time actually doing this. So if you take that link in the description again, it's just about conservatives being debanked. I would say, though, there have been sporadic instances of people on the left also being debanked. I don't think that should be happening either. I think that everyone should have the ability, if you have the means, to hold an account. You've got money in there. That's your personal property. I do not believe that banks should be able to ban you without prior notice. They should have to give you notice. You should be able to instantaneously transfer those funds to a different bank of your choosing, and you should be able to divest yourself of that initial bank. They'll probably charge a fee or so, or a penalty or something like that, but you're able to move your things over. And it takes a lot of effort because then, on all of your online sites, if you're a content creator, your bank account is tied to maybe a dozen different sites. You're going to have to go into every single one of them and change all of the account details. I don't really have this problem myself and haven't because, I've taken approach to safeguard myself. But if you're a content creator, let's say you haven't branched out. So you're just an Instagrammer. That's your main form of income. You take pinup pictures on Instagram and simps pay you a bunch of money. If you're associated with a bank account, the problem is if the bank account goes away, you're going to have to switch everything over and it's going to be a goddamn hassle. That's the other point that I would like to make. It isn't the hassle that these banks are creating for people because they're getting hassled in turn by the craptivists. Isn't that a violation of some sort of human right? Hey, you have to spend 10 hours today that you could be using to make actual money trying to recover the money that you've already got. Because we ain't giving it back to you unless you squared this away. I think that that's a little bit on the unfair side. What it does is it gives the ability to your critics to destroy your career more than anything else. Just out of malice. There doesn't have to really be a reason. Oh my God, you said the wrong word. I'm so offended, and they'll clutch their pearls and shit like that. The banking crisis, though, is growing deeper For a while, it was a little bit more, yeah, a little bit more quiet. It happened occasionally, but not very often. Trump's first term, lots of debanking. Biden gets elected. Somehow, amazingly, this is absolutely miraculous. The second that a Democrat was in office, the debanking began to stop. Now that Trump is back in office, the debanking has begun again. I wonder what the connection could be here. Let's scratch our heads for a moment. Why could that be? Could it be petulant smooth brains that are obsessed with the concept of Orange Man bad, and that all of the people that still support him are also evil? Yeah, that might be a good explanation as to why that timeline happened. Yeah, I think so. It is a crisis, though. I mean, not to be glib about it, but it is an actual crisis because people should be able to engage in commerce. You're literally damaging your own economy just to spite people simply because of their political beliefs at some point. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I mean, you're part of that economy too. If it should go downhill, you suffer as well. But these people are too smooth-brained, too small-minded to actually understand this. So it becomes a little bit of a problem for everyone. Intelligent people and rational people in society have to suffer as idiots destroy the system. And not destroying it in the good way. I mean, hell, I'm all for that. But destroying it in a way that is completely convoluted, ultimately ridiculous, and makes absolutely no sense. You're not allowed to bank because you voted for the wrong person. Is this really what our founders intended? Can I ask that question? I know that the liberals don't care, but yeah, I'm going to ask it anyway. That's about all. Peace out.